Imagine it's nighttime. What are the sounds you can hear? Is it that distant wailing of the city traffic? Or maybe it's just the crickets chirping. Is it the rustle of the leaves? Or maybe that constant whistle of the wind? To us, these are insignificant noises that we don't even tend to notice. Yet there are millions across this nation that have never even heard those sounds once in their lives. That begs the question, how do you function in a society that you can't hear? How do you live a life of marginalization because only you speak a different language? And it's just not only your physical existence that takes a toll. It's definitely your mental well-being as well. Things as basic as ordering food or going to the doctors becomes a huge obstacle. And can you imagine being a deaf parent to your own hearing child and never being able to hear the first word they said? Or that amazing speech they prepared for, went on stage, gave it to everyone that you couldn't hear? Or the other way around. Imagine being a deaf child to hearing parents and never being able to communicate with your own mother or your own father like you and I are so used to. Can you imagine a life like that? A life of being otherized by society just by the virtue of speaking a different language? Can you imagine that? What if I told you it's not all doom and gloom? There's a lot that is being done and that can be done to ensure that deaf people across Pakistan are actually involved in society and are accepted as equally as we're so used to. Which is why I'm here to talk about ConnectHear. ConnectHear is a youth-led, socially oriented startup that was co-founded 2 years ago by me and my 2 fellow exchange alumni. And we focus on ensuring that deaf people feel as equally a part of our society as the rest of us. Our flagship services involve interpretation. And one of them is video interpretation that allows anyone with an internet-connected smartphone to have instant access to an interpreter anywhere across the nation. That allows deaf people to finally be independent and do tasks like just ordering food or run their errands very easily. We also offer in-person interpretation services for events not actually unlike this one, where there's deaf audience members involved, and then we can have an interpreter on stage interpreting whatever is going on so they feel equally as involved as the rest of the audience members. And through digitizing and democratizing interpretation services, we've helped enable deaf people take control of their lives and ensure that they do not feel as marginalized as they were once used to. But before I move forward and talk about all the other stuff that we did and are doing, let me ask you this. What do you think sign language is? What would your answer to this question be? Because a common misconception is that sign language is just gestures based on some other language. However, that's not the case. Sign language, like Urdu, English, Punjabi, Balochi, Sindhi, is a language of its own. But rather than having words that are spoken, sign language is based on body language, facial expressions, and hand gestures. And so each country around the world has its own national sign language. And Pakistan has one too, which we also are focusing on standardizing as well. But beyond all that, what we've done through democratizing our services is allow people like Awais, one of YES alumni actually, who has finally felt involved and as active into society as he was never able to. Thank you. But apart from Awais and the other 50,000 minutes of interpretation that we've served over the past 2 years, there's one story that stands out the most to me, and that is of Asif. Asif is a shopkeeper based in Karachi in the commercial area of Hyderabad. He is already an independent person with his own booming business, and he is a deaf person. The biggest issue, though, was that his clientele only existed of deaf people because those were the people he could most easily communicate with. Every time a hearing person would approach him, they'd always have that issue of communication. They'd always have that barrier where each other couldn't understand whatever the other person was trying to say. So then, once Asif stumbles onto our Facebook page, sees what we do, tries to give us a shot. And I'm proud to say, ever since then, he's our regular partner. And his business is actually booming more than ever. With him finally being able to build a clientele beyond just his deaf community. And hearing people also enjoy the fact that they can feel involved in making Pakistan more accessible for people like Asif. And not just him, we have people that are now more active members of society, such as an example you can see here, where a company, Sair Sapata, worked with us to ensure that deaf people can experience Karachi to the fullest, where they went on a tour across the whole city. But we didn't stop there. What we wanted to do was even more. So it is interesting how all of us are just used to having television channels across the board, right? Even in this hotel room, each and every one of us has access to 150 channels that we barely even watch. But why isn't even one of them for the deaf people? So we just went ahead and solved that problem by creating our own production wing that produces regular video content in sign language for deaf people to be aware of what's going on in the world with relation to technology, entertainment, general news, current affairs, and much more. But even with all of this, we felt that there was a higher calling. There was definitely something more that we could do, but we just couldn't figure out what it was. Then one day, one of our interpreters receives a call. It was from a young boy asking us to interpret the fact that he had a stomachache and he needed to be taken to a doctor's. Now, that's not a huge issue. We deal with such calls on an everyday basis. The problem was the person he asked us to interpret to. Can any one of you guess who that could be? It was his own mother. So across Pakistan, we have a huge issue of people not even knowing sign language. And at that point, we realized that providing interpretation services is only half of the equation. We also need to make sure that hearing people like us learn sign language so that we can communicate as well. And we shouldn't need to rely on a third person or a third service to do that for us, which is why we then started our sign language classes. And we were excited by the overwhelming response we received from students to special educators, from normal friends and families to teachers to professionals in their industry. All of them were very interested in learning sign language. And we're proud to state that we currently offer classes across Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad, and we've graduated 400 individuals at varying level of sign language literacy. And the icing on top of that cake is that we also will be launching our inauguratory batch in Gilgit this fall as well. So we are really proud of the difference we've kind of been able to make. But as a person, just myself, this is all that I could do. But we felt that we needed to show larger than life examples to not just our vicinity, to not just my city, or to not just a certain community, but to all of Pakistan and possibly the world as well. So then we went on, collaborated with Strings, and did Pakistan's first ever deaf inclusive concert, attended by 300 deaf individuals who for the first time in their lives found an avenue of entertainment that even they didn't think was possible before. And now we're so proud when we see deaf individuals go out to public spaces and events like these, where they ask for interpreters to be present. And they're themselves taking control of the fact that they are making Pakistan more inclusive for themselves, by themselves. But we didn't stop there. 2018 was also a monumental year in terms of the general elections that we had. It's a civic process that each of our responsibility and rights are in. But the deaf people were always ignored. So then we worked with GeoNews and did a general election live stream that ran for 4 hours straight, was watched by around 60,000 deaf individuals, not just only from Pakistan, but deaf Pakistanis from across the world. And we were reached out to them. And they told us that this was the first time ever that they felt that they were involved in the civic process of electing a new leader. Isn't that inspiring? And isn't that something that should drive all of us to do even more? Which we did. We wrapped up last year by conducting Ishara, which was Pakistan's biggest deaf theater competition, attended by 1,200 individuals, many of whom were deaf and many were hearing. And for the first time, we brought both of this community together, helped them interact with each other and understand where each of our strengths lie. We gave deaf artists that are already very animated and very active and energetic and enthusiastic about theater and drama, we gave them a platform to showcase their skills to the rest of the world. And we were really glad to see each and everyone coming together in praising them. So with all that said and done, that's all that we've done. And I want to leave you with the opportunity that I implore you to think differently about people with disabilities. Because they are definitely just as capable, if not more, I may add, than us. And all that took us to give this particular community a platform was not be ignorant and ensure that their needs are met just as well as ours are. Thank you.